What's up, Nick? What's up, Joe?
Hey guys.
So you've got
Put me into the presenters room, huh?
I did get you in here. Looks like. Of course. Amazing. How often I get these phone calls. Okay.
They're dressed up.
Change my name. You all want to just rename, like add kettle next to your names? Might make it easier.
Do you want me here? Because and this is really more than Nick.
You can join. You can come in as an attendee. You want to do that? You have the
Yeah.
link, the attendee link, right?
Yeah, I think that's what I clicked, but he must have seen me come in.
Oh, I don't know how do I degrade you here?
Yeah, I'll go out. I'll go out and come back.
Okay, I change a role to attendee. There you go. That should have done it. Did that do it? Change role to attendee. Oh, that's whoops. Did that to Nick by accident. I'm making you a host, Nick. See if that works. Good.
There we go.
Well, then Nick just rolled. Hang on a second here.
Now I'm here.
Okay, no, that should not be.
You kicked Nick out.
Of course, it kicked him out. Shit. How do I change that now?
I'm gonna drop out. I'll let Nick know to come back in, and
Yeah.
you'll be okay.
Okay, cool. Get started here shortly.
You have to upgrade Nick.
Yeah, I just sent him another one. It's not letting me actually upgrade him from the attendee side. I think it's because I might have made you a host by accident. So you want it now. I think you can do it since I accidentally made you the host instead of Nick. On the right where it says participants, just if you click on yourself, or if you click on Nick, just
Here we go.
there's a section that says more, and you can do the same with me also if you want. Do you see that?
I got it. Nick should be coming in. There is Nick.
Nick's on. Good. We solved.
What's up, guys? I'm back. I could see you and hear you the whole time.
Yeah, I know. I when I was right clicking, I right clicked Joe and then made him the host by accident. And then instead of making him the attendee, I made you the attendee. So why don't we do this? Why don't you? Are you?
I'm gonna drop out. You're now the host. Nick is now
Perfect.
a panel. Panelist. So hopefully this works. I'll be back as a attendee in a minute.
All right. Later, Joe. Thanks for the troubleshooting. All right. For the lucky guests that are on, we're gonna wait for the usual few minutes to get folks rolled in here, and then we'll get started. Thanks for bearing with the troubleshooting early on. Forgetting how events work. It's been a long time. Not working, Joe? Let me get you. Hang on. I got you. I got you covered. Hang on. This time I'm not going to screw it up.
Guess not.
Okay, there we go. You should fall into attendees shortly. There seems to be a delay, which is part of the problem. There we go. All right. How's it going, Nick?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. Some bumps along the way getting this started. Seriously, it's like I haven't done one of these events in a long time. We'll see.
Yeah. Pretty soon we're going to do the good old-fashioned real-world events again. It's going to be fun.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see if I can still pull that off. We will see. All right, we'll give it another minute or so. It's a little bit of a shotgun webinar for those that are on. So planned it on short notice, really just to get it in front of people that are still working through their return to office plans. And I was fortunate enough to get this demo from Nick, and now he offered to share with other people. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot. We're going to record it so we can send it out afterwards as well. It is recording. Yeah, and then we will go from there. Let me just give it another few seconds so more people can jump on here. Usually it's about 50% if who attend will join, and we're well below that now, so we might want to give people a couple minutes. I also don't think it'll take the full hour for those that are on, so we'll get you all out of here on time. All right, let's do it. All right, folks, I honestly don't even remember how to do half this stuff. It's been such a long time, but here we are. What we'll do is we'll do a quick introduction, and then we'll get right to it. I am Tarek Pertew. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Uncubed and Media Bistro. We also run a creative agency called Uncubed Studios. It's an employer brand creative agency. I'll explain a little bit about what we do in a moment, but I write an email every week or every other week. It does change depending on how crazy my weeks go, to about 3,000 HR professionals. And it's a little bit of banter, followed by hopefully some useful articles, videos, podcasts, and jobs. And that's the genesis of it. It's every other week I send it out. And so most of the people that are going to be on are probably going to be readers of that email, and hopefully you might already know me. And if not, I suppose this is the face behind the email if you've never seen me or met me before. And Uncubed, so I've been with one of the founders of Uncubed. It's been around for about 12 years, a little under 12, about 11 years. And we traditionally have worked to help fast-growing technology companies hire. In 2019, we bought a company called Media Bistro, and that's a company that's been around for about 2 decades, and they've been just a fixture in the media landscape for those 20 years. If anyone that's probably ever landed a job in media has found their way through the Media Bistro website one way or another. We're proud to have them in the family. We acquired a business called Finalist last year, and Finalist is what powers our early professional hiring part of our business. It's a curated marketplace of engineers and data scientists out of different colleges. And but what I spend most of my time doing, and for those that are readers to the Thursday email, is employer branding. I am the Chief Creative Officer here. I oversee our creative agency, which is called Uncubed Studios. It has a completely separate domain name, uncubedstudios.com. And we help brands develop their EVP. Most of our work is capturing that EVP in visual content, usually videos, that will then live on your career page, Glassdoor page, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. If you're targeting a certain profile, like an engineer or more retail-focused employees, we create content that's designed to accelerate that engagement and the conversions there. For me, that's just the most fun that we have, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. So if that's ever of interest to you and you want a demo, just let me know. But what we had done traditionally for a long time here at Uncubed is we've had events. It's been the DNA of our business since we got started. We used to host these enormous tech job fairs throughout the city called NYC Uncubed or Chicago Uncubed or SF Uncubed or Berlin Uncubed. We hosted them everywhere. And it was just a platform for emerging technology companies to meet talent. We did that for a long time until quite frankly, we were like, I'm not doing another event for as long as I live because they're just too damn exhausting. And that's really where the business changed. And that was about 2016, where we launched the creative agency, or what has become the creative agency, our job board, and most of our technology. For anyone that is currently watching the Euro Cup, please no spoilers. I'm a big soccer person. I run a soccer league here in New York called NYC Footy. In fact, I'm going to put a plug in here. We launched a corporate league for the first time this season. Facebook's in it, Square's in it, Better.com, I think, has 3 teams in it. So if you're in HR and you're trying to get your remote workforce to interact with each other outside of the office, totally aside from Uncubed, let me know. Let's get a soccer team going in the leagues. A lot of fun. Nick, I met a long time ago when we were doing in-person events for Uncubed as part of an HR breakfast series that we would host quite regularly. And we partnered with KettleSpace to host the events at their location. So KettleSpace traditionally has activated beautiful spaces, primarily restaurants, that are quiet during the day, but perfect for working environments, and activating them for anybody that wants to be out of their house or not in the office, wherever they might be, or take meetings. And so we used to host these HR breakfasts at different restaurants throughout the city. And we always talked about different topics in HR. Eventually it became topics most focused on employer branding. But it was a really fun relationship. KettleSpace fed everybody a delicious breakfast, and then COVID hit and we stopped doing the HR breakfasts. We did, I think, one virtual event last year before I realized I hate virtual events. I was like, I can't, it's not in me, it's not in my DNA. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. But earlier this year, Nick and his co-founder Dan pinged me and said, I want to show you some of the cool stuff we're working on that relates very much to the return to workplace, flexible work environments for employees, employee engagement and happiness. And it was awesome. And it was something that I knew anyone that reads the email should see, because for the past 2 months, the most clicked articles, although the most clicked article ever was a link to our farmhouse upstate, but every other link that's been the top has been about flex work and return to office and the bumps along the way and the failures that Google have made and the challenges Apple's facing and just some survey results. And one of the things we've learned, unfortunately, is that pretty much every company is just not surveying their own employees to ask what they're interested in and what creates a good working environment for them. And that's obviously going to be a failure point that shows its face in a number of organizations over the next 2 years. But what Nick and his team have come up with is effectively the most flexible work arrangement you could provide for your employees. They've created a CRM of sorts or a dashboard. They have better words for it than me, but that helps HR teams understand exactly where all their employees are and how they can facilitate a very efficient out-of-home work environment for them. And it's something that I think speaks to the voice of your employees that are saying, we don't necessarily want to come back to office full time. By the way, all of your employees are pretty much saying that, as much as some of you and some of your colleagues might like to say that's not the case. Pretty much everybody wants to remain in a very flexible work environment. The majority would love the opportunity to come into an office if they could, but remote first remains the priority. And what Kettle is going to offer is a way for people not to get stuck in their unhealthy routines of just sitting at their desk all day long, getting out, taking meetings, being with people. And you've never seen it before. And this is an opportunity for you to see it and bring it back to your office and say, hey, this could be a really wonderful perk or benefit, or however you want to call it, for employees, or it could be just a platform that you are going to use exclusively. And that's the nature of it. And if I'm sounding a little jaded by the topic of flexible work, it's only because I'm shocked at how many companies are not asking their employees what's important to them. And it's really disappointing. I know that would not be the priority for you that are listening. That's just the nature of how it's happening from the top down. And if there's more I can do to push companies in that direction through webinars or articles or videos, whatever else, then we'll do it. I'm sure there's so much more I can say. Obviously, I'd love to thank everybody that's taking time out of their day to come and check in and listen. We want you to be as active as possible on the Q&A. And if you just want some thought leadership dialogue that might not relate to Kettle or Uncubed, we'll share it. We know the space exceedingly well. Obviously, Nick is going to know what's going on in the co-working world and the workplace environment world way more than I am. They have a pedigree from WeWork and other companies prior to Kettle, so they know this space extremely well. And I just know the world of employee engagement, employee happiness, and EVP and employer branding extremely well. So if any questions surface, we're here for you. But Nick, why don't I go ahead and pass this off to you? Do a full introduction if you don't mind, maybe a little bit about your background, the background of Dan, your co-founder as well, to give people a bit of an idea that the things that you know are not, know as a fact, but know from experience, and that you can share that with everybody. And then so long as technology is working for us, share your screen and show us what what you can. And I'll go on mute in the meantime.
Cool. Tarek, thanks for inviting me and us to be part of this. It's been awesome to kind of see where our conversation and partnership has evolved from. Very different. I'm Nick, CEO, co-founder of KettleSpace. I'm a serial founder. Been crazy enough to basically been starting business my entire career across various different industries and completely different business models. So I'm very much a generalist. KettleSpace has a kind of unique story where we have a before, during, and after. Before COVID, as Tarek pointed out, we had about 20 workspace locations in and around Manhattan and Brooklyn, several thousand paying members, mostly freelancers at the time, and kind of budding technology and good growth story and all that good stuff. But that ended over the course of the weekend from the March 13th to the 16th. When at the time, we voluntarily closed our businesses. We didn't feel it was safe. We didn't want to charge people. We kind of were a little bit more proactive than some others, but net, we lost our business overnight. And then we decided, if we can survive and get through the storm, that the future could be bright, but the key to it was getting as close to the new problems of the future of work as we could. So that led us on an endeavor to talk to as many business leaders as we could. And at this point, we've spoken to more than 1,000 people. I've personally talked to more than 500, simply asking questions. What keeps you up at night? What are your employees saying? What's leadership thinking? Where do you have a solution? Where do you need a solution? And that conversation has progressed over 14, 15 months now. And it's very interesting to have kind of been in it from the beginning. And what we concluded very early, I would say, a year ago, July, August, is that the future is hybrid. We had no idea what that meant a year ago. It's just we were getting enough pattern recognition to kind of accept this idea that the air can't go back in the ball, and we all can't kind of unsee what this experience of remote work and productivity and new work-life balance feels like and looks like. So I'd be happy to share with any of you kind of what we've learned. We have spent hours and hours and deep down the rabbit hole. I can tell you the one thing that we're certain of is that there's still a lot of uncertainty and that nobody's going to get this right out of the gate. It's really going to be a test and learn type of situation. And it's a moment of sort of global change that's going to be pervasive for most companies and many, many, many individuals. There's a McKinsey report that came out recently that says 90% of companies are going to be in some way, shape, or form permanently hybrid, but 70% still don't have a plan or the tooling to execute on it. So you're not alone if you're still searching for this, and hopefully can be a thought partner at the very least to any of you, and happy to answer questions. So Tarek, if it's cool with you, I might just kind of share my screen and take you through kind of our view of hybrid and how we see kind of things unfolding.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
And I'll ask questions along the way as if it comes to mind. But when you all did the demo the first time, and I was just really impressed with where I think this is heading, and what if I feel like there's anything you're skipping over that I recall, I'll just ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep it. And the gist of hybrid as we're looking at it, I mean, when you think about it, 15 months ago, we all went to work every day, and there were some exceptions, but generally that was the construct. And then overnight, we all stayed home, and it was incredibly jarring and abrasive, but over time we acclimated, and it was a very simple thing to understand. Go to work, don't go to work, stay home. Now in hybrid, we've got this environment where we've got new opportunities, new choices, new options, new rules, and kind of we need to put that together in a way that it creates, rhyme and reason in an otherwise what could be pretty chaotic situation. So if you think about it, we have people, time, and spaces that need to be artfully coordinated, and the coordination of those kind of pieces of the equation need to create experiences. And we're coining this term WX. It's a lot like UX, but it's like, what's the new layer or skin on how we navigate both as leaders and as kind of employees in this new mixed modality environment. So our software that we're developing, we call it KettleOS. The gist is that it's meant to enable compelling and thoughtful experiences with this new landscape, and also really lean into the fact that this is not going to be a set it and forget it. This is a try it, iterate, make it better, and adapt kind of situation. So quick gist about us, and won't talk much longer here, but we've been, kind of endeavoring in a version of hybrid work for the last 5 years, since 2016. We've had 50,000 users, more than 100 spaces and experiences. We are part tech, we are part workspace, but in our heart of hearts, we are hospitality. At the end of the day, technology doesn't mean anything if it doesn't make people's lives better, or bring joy to them in some way, shape, or form. That's how we feel. Talked about the going deep down the rabbit hole. We've talked to 1,000+ leaders like yourselves. We've been led to water. What we've built is in response to what people have said they need and want. We're pretty certain that this is going to be not a one size fits all, and really kind of a long-term vision towards making this thing work in a way that leaders win, employees and workers win, and then the other side of our business is helping local businesses. So as we reached that conclusion that the future is hybrid last summer, we didn't exactly know what it meant, but we were pretty excited about how we could get ahead of this and help companies and leaders, when things thawed out, be able to kind of have some infrastructure to solve these new problems. At the same time, we hooked up with NYU and helped them. They were one of the pioneers in the educational space of creating a hybrid campus environment. So we helped them find space. We helped them, both gave technology to their leadership and to their students and faculty who were using spaces and experiences. And above all, we've created a great partnership because we've helped them kind of iterate along the way. There's tons of research out there. I'm sure all of you have read many of the same articles we have, but the net is people just don't want to be at home every day, and they don't want to be in the office every day. And like Tarek said, whether or not that's going to be kind of embraced or heard from employers right away, especially with Gen Z coming through the workforce, we're pretty certain that it can't be undone. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. That can be a good thing. And those that are early in attempting to figure this out and putting some thought and putting some data and putting some communication around it all, we believe will have talent advantages. You're going to retain the people that want some cake and eat it too. And ultimately, this is going to be a competitive talent landscape where the companies that have these thoughtful policies are going to attract people that want that. And I would say it's fair to say most of us on this call have enjoyed some aspect of kind of the new paradigm of work. So everyone sort of fits in that boat. The last thing kind of about our thesis on all of this is that we believe firmly that this is a progression. Right now, what many of the folks in your shoes can see is we got everybody at home, and we got our existing office space. Like, that's a very natural starting point. But then when you start to think about this, there's what happens when our lease comes due. Do we need the same type of space? Is it what activities are best done in person? What activities are best done kind of heads down and remote? What happens when people get tired of working from home? Is there a remote work near home alternative, a third space? How do we create culture and management policies in a more distributed model? What are these talent advantages we were just talking about need to look like vis-a-vis, the companies that we're competing for people with? And it kind of goes on. And as you think about this over progression of time, we're at the tip of the iceberg. And this is such big change. Kind of the analogy I think about is like, we all could imagine life before smartphones. We lived it, we got through it, it was normal. But now, like, thinking back, how did we actually do that? We're so ingrained. And I personally believe, having spoken to so many folks, this is one of those, like, can you imagine when we actually went to the office 5 days a week? That was crazy. How do we do that? I think we're sort of in that mindset. And you see that with the responses from Apple, like Tarek mentioned, people just aren't going to accept the status quo. And we can talk more about that in Q&A, but I've found that kind of there's some fascinating major power dynamic changes that have occurred. So that's the setup for how we view hybrid and what we've learned, and I'm happy to expand on that if there are additional questions. But the solution we built was in response to talking to people like yourselves. First is really thinking through the people ops side of it. So we have leaders navigating brand new landscape with no playbook. We have employees figuring out what they want and what they need. And then we have, the intelligence that needs to go with that. But first things first is we need to sort some stuff out. And the things we need to sort out are, what's a rule, what's a policy, what's a choice? How's that going to be impacted for different teams, organization-wide, department-wide, and down to the individual? And so when you start to unpack that, there's a good bit of sort of complexity that has largely remained ambiguous for a lot of companies, even if they've kind of said, hey, we think we want to be back in the office 2 days a week. It's a great starting point, but it's really just the beginning of like, how do you actually operationalize that? And we've set up our software so that we can support kind of any flavor of hybrid, meaning a week in, a week out, you're this type of employee, you're that type of employee, 2 days, choice days, flex days. To us, it's sort of policy agnostic, but the really important thing is that we help leaders unpack the kind of hierarchy of decisions that need to get created, and then can ultimately map those to individual users and teams, and also acknowledging that an individual might be part of different teams. You might be on the engineering team, a scrum team, and the culture team. So kind of acknowledging that whatever sits in Workday may not be exactly how people are actually navigating. So then the second piece on this people ops side of it for us, and what we're endeavoring to solve, is we're not trying to be prescriptive. We're not PwC and Ernst & Young, who have thoughtful consulting groups that are saying your engineering team should be a 20% in the office and 80% home. Like, again, we're the implementation tool and the data intelligence tool to kind of build muscle and brain power over time. So we think, again, nobody's going to get this right out of the gate, but what is most important is to be able to operationalize it so that we're gathering the data that we need. So we can help across the mixed modality data identify for an individual, hey, this is based on your KPIs, however you're measuring engagement or performance, other success metrics, and we triangulate that against kind of the ratio of hybrid. This 50-50 blend is working really well for this individual or for this team, but for this other team or individual, it's not. So let's recalibrate it. Let's take the feedback, let's take the data, and let's use that to kind of make this whole thing smarter and optimized over time. So that's sort of our approach to the people ops side of it. And again, that came through a lot of conversations of, I got a spreadsheet, I got a space reservation plan, but for us, this is, beyond this thing, whole thing goes beyond booking. The other piece is there's a space ops component, and it needs to go hand in hand with the people ops, because that's what we're talking about, is sort of people, space, and time together. And this was where we decided fundamentally as a company, we were going to split from our legacy business. We still have our spaces, and we just started reopening yesterday, which is exciting. But we also have the software, which is completely space agnostic. So we know people have an HQ. Some people are going to keep that over time. Likely that footprint's going to change. Some people are going to let their office go entirely. And then some people are going to add third space, co-working space alternatives. Could be KettleSpace, could be WeWork, could be local co-working place in a neighborhood. But the gist is needing to kind of have the whole view of a portfolio of potential workspaces in the tool so that those can be coordinated and those policies can be established. Depending on the appetite for the HR folks to collaborate with the real estate folks and facilities folks, we can gather a good deal of really valuable utilization data in terms of space. So if an organization cares about kind of these subspaces and which spaces are being more utilized, we can cut an HQ or a floor into any infinite number of subspaces and sub-experiences, and then make those available to individual groups or cohorts within the organization. Or we can just keep it simple and say, this person walked in, this person walked out, and it's as kind of granular or as broad as an organization has an appetite for. But net, as we're gathering that data, both qualitative and quantitative, we got a lot of rich insights that we can use to kind of shape the go forward version of hybrid as it's going to be evolving. So, there's a lot of ways you can cut data. There's a lot of different views, but just the nets to the leadership team, we're saying, hey, look, over time, you're going to spend less on real estate. Over time, it's going to be more flexible. So you're going to take a major cost center. We're going to hammer it down. And then your people are going to be happy. They're going to have the right balance when they're together in the office. It's going to be with purpose and intention. You can use that as vehicles to build culture and bonds and other kind of valuable things. And you're going to have an attractive policy around this that helps you keep people and attract other people. And that's kind of the net of how we're helping leaders navigate this kind of over time. The other side of our solution is the user app. And for us, it's really this concept that if you think about hybrid and what people aren't talking about yet, but will be, is even though we were all in the office and then we stayed home, we ultimately acclimated to that. It was a fairly consistent thing to acclimate to. You know, new routines, get into the home office or on the couch or wherever, just get to work and kind of build that. Think about hybrid, it's in the office, not in the office, in the office, not in the office. It's going to be turbulence from an experience standpoint. And once we all start kind of getting some reps on this, we're going to realize that like that turbulence is going to persist through our home lives, and it's going to create a new set of challenges and things that need to get figured out. And our belief is that rather than make this about booking a desk, and you do need to book a desk, but make this about creating a level of continuity on the user experience that helps kind of ground, you know, navigating through that diverse topography of new choices and new locations and just a new set of optionality. So again, we go back to this idea of WX, which is what do you need today to do your best work? What are you trying to accomplish? What do you need next week if you're planning in advance? Who do you need to do that with? And sort of really make it more of a holistic approach to navigating kind of the new hybrid, more than just simply book a desk. I mean, you can book a desk, and this is, in this example, an employee can see what's available to them. So based on, if you go back to that people ops where we started, you know, based on the team that they're on and the org's permission or the policies of the hybrid environment, they can see which days they can be in HQ. They can see which days they might have the ability to go to KettleSpace or a WeWork or whatever. They also have the ability to you know, facilitate meetings and collaboration on site. And then these extracurriculars, and this will be something we'll be building out over time, but the gist is the ability to support some organic gathering and the water cooler moments that we miss kind of in the more distributed fashion. But again, browse by experience, choose what you need, make a reservation, calendar integrations, all that good stuff. Currently, we have a QR code that can be used as what we call active surveillance, where the user's like, I'm here, I'm checking in. We're exploring some passive surveillance, which would eliminate the scan. Different organizations feel differently about kind of knowing and reporting on where people are exactly, but don't have to have a reservation in advance to claim an experience or a space. And then the ability to make a reservation and coordinate with others and sort of build out collaboration. People get invites and calendar integrations, et cetera, et cetera. So just to kind of wrap it up and then turn it to Q&A, like our whole philosophy here is that, you know, we were this way in terms of being overweighted towards work in the office, and we went this way, and now we're going to kind of settle in the middle through thoughtful calibration and through utilizing tools and data and really taking a test and learn approach out of the gate and embrace kind of, and if we do that, advantage and ultimately settle in, become steady state, and kind of everybody can win, but it definitely takes the right kind of thoughtful approach. So that's our gist. I haven't been watching the chat, Tarek, but happy to expand on anything if helpful.
Yeah, much appreciated. I mean, I have some questions, obviously, if folks that are listening, if you have questions, please ask. Again, even if it's not related to the product, it's just related to what we're hearing in the, you know, in the industry and trying to make your own decisions. I've run a couple of polls in the Thursday email about remote work. There's been a few patterns that we've seen. One is the most recent one. I asked the list, if you take your HR hat off and you simply think about what you want as an employee at a company, you know, what does that work arrangement look like? And it was the gross majority was they wanted a remote first with an option to go to an office, which seems obvious now. I think what we're seeing, or at least the headlines that are dominating, are forced return to office and otherwise just complete confusion. And, I've chatted with a ton of companies about return to work. A lot of the reason I have these conversations is because I oversee our creative agency, and a lot of companies are trying to figure out how to create content that would either help them in a return to in a remote environment, or, hey, we're thinking about being back in office. Can we do an on-location shoot, whatever? But when I ask folks, I mean, a lot of companies are waiting to just see where the broader industry is taking them, rather than making an active decision themselves. And I understand it because it's risky. Look, Google came out and made an active decision, and they got bad press for it. Maybe they don't care because they're big, and who knows. And Apple made a decision, they got bad press for it, and Morgan Stanley made a decision and they got bad press for it. And all the decisions that are being made that are getting bad press is some form of forced in-office experience. And part of it is, hey, you got to be in the office at least 3 days a week. And that seems like one of the most flexible arrangements you could come up with. Except that there's a lot of people that have left their location and the employer is not fully aware of it yet. And so they won't be able to come into office even if it were 1 day a week. And so they're hoping, obviously, that the environment caters to some sort of remote first function. But we all know that there's value in bringing people together, and it's going to take a while before it shakes out. One of the things that I hope listeners consider is, how can we, instead of sitting in a space where we haven't executed on decisions, and that was another poll, which is, where are you currently in your return to office planning? And just a small percentage said that they have landed on a final decision and they're not going to stray from it. And it may or may not be communicated to the employee. It may or may not have already been communicated to employees. But the vast majority are folks that are, they have started the planning, but they're unsure where it's going to shake out. And I think a lot of what's happening in the space are just employees that probably are hoping that it ends up being favorable to them, but they don't really have a say in it. So a few options that companies can do, of course, is just to do a very quick poll, the way I did it, and just say, these are the things that we could do as a company. What would make you get excited about it? What would make you tell all your friends to come work here based on this one major decision that we're going to ultimately have to execute on? And then, of course, the executives need to make a decision that's best for the business, because we do know that innovating together is the best way to do it. When people can be in a room or some sort of room. Everyone's focused on employee engagement right now. That's a major focus, especially with remote. So what does that look like in remote work? We know that the stats are out that employee well-being is down. This is what's interesting. Employee well-being is down, mental health is down, the desire to stay remote is up. So you have a little bit of conflicting information here, but so what does that mean for employers? How do you create a work environment where you can potentially prioritize remote work, ensure that the business continues to grow, but also develop some sort of plans and strategies that don't burn your employees out and give them a platform whereby they leave their desk at whatever, but they have to take agency themselves, of course. But we all know that companies are playing a bigger role in the lives of their employees, and how to help facilitate mental health initiatives, social justice initiatives, and what have you. So this is all that's at stake. What I love about what you all are doing is that it's such an easy and lightweight way to give a great work option for employees. Here, we've thought about, we've thought about a platform that gets you out of the house but doesn't force you into the office. We thought about a platform that gets you out of the house but doesn't force you onto public transportation. It's flexible, it can change, you can take meetings there, whatever it might be. And I think that, to me, feels like such a good, even just first step, as just like, something that, to be honest, we should offer at Uncubed is, hey, if you all want to get out of your home office, like me, Tarek, I would like to, instead of being here all the time. there's a cafe right down the street that's part of a co-working platform that we use, and you can drop in, or there's a space, here and what have you. Start taking meetings again, whatever it might be. So I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of that. Hopefully, people have been able to just take notes. Let this be one of hopefully a lot of demos that you might be doing, especially because I imagine there are more options that are surfacing for people.
We had a question come in from Mary, which I can speak to, and you might have a perspective too on it.
Sure.
The question is about power dynamics. So as I went real deep. I got really into hybrid and talking to people. And if any of you want to talk, I would love to talk. I love to talk about it here, what you're seeing and your perspective. But one thing that became clear to me is like, as long as there's been employment, there's worker and boss power dynamics. And boss tells worker when and where to be, or worker can go get another job, right? It's just kind of the way it is. Technology probably could have enabled fully remote or hybrid 10 years ago. IBM tried it, Yahoo tried it. It didn't really go, came back. But now that we're 15 months into this thing, many companies are claiming higher productivity, and there are some engagement issues still, as Tarek pointed out, but like it's working. Power to the people. People are saying, wait a minute, this construct that I have to go be in an office to largely put my head down behind a computer for a lot of positions is bullshit. And I'm not going to do it. And a few weeks ago, stats and surveys were coming out. People would quit if they were told they had to come back for 5 days. Then the Bloomberg article came out a week and a half ago and said people are quitting. Then there's another stat I read, to Tarek's point, that 20 million Americans have actually moved and kept their job. That's not even counting the people that took a new job while things were hybrid/remote. And you're not talking about Gen Z. And we all know that Gen Z has cared about work-life balance, flexibility prior to the pandemic. Like if you take all those factors together, the employees have way more leverage than they've ever had. And I think like when you strip it all down, take those trends, all of those, and you're like, this can't be undone. And for companies that acknowledge that openly and say, hey, we know that this has changed. Let's work together to find this new equilibrium. They're going to do a lot better than the Apples of the world. Because to Tarek's point, that's pretty reasonable. Come back 3 days a week. No. And the reason that was a hard no was because it wasn't flexible and it wasn't like accommodating. It was, we're going to tell you what to do. So it's not that, in my opinion, and we're not the prescribers of how to do this, but in my opinion, there needs to be some open dialogue, which is like, look, we can't have chaos. We can't have employee choice democracy on everything, but we can meet in the middle and we can agree that there are some choices and there are some rules. And if we can kind of agree together to reestablish those power dynamics and agree together to find those equilibriums, and it might be, there are some individuals that are just, they really want to be work from homers. And we know there are some individuals that really want to be in the office. And so just acknowledging that those two individual personas are completely different and they might sit next to each other on the same team. So, being able to acknowledge those differences with communication and change management strategies, I think is paramount. And in terms of your question about, some of the social implications, there's a lot going on in the world. I mean, the last year has been full for all of us. But what I can say that I've learned in talking to specifically HR folks is that there are some real things to be considered here in terms of equality. And I do think having policies that are clear and this is my opinion, this isn't our software, but I was talking to head of HR and she said something to me that really stuck. And it was like, look, the second we have ambiguity breeds inequality. And I was like, that's pretty insightful. So not only is that dialogue that Tarek was mentioning really important, but then also coming out and saying, hey, we're going to try this, or we're going to start here based on your feedback. And this is our policy and this is the way it's going to happen. I think it's a must, because without that, it becomes too loosey-goosey and that breeds inequality. You've got your FaceTimers who are, are they being favored because they like office, time in the office, or people with kids who need to be home a little more often? Are they going to miss out? And I just, I don't know those answers, but I do know that that's something to have your eyes wide open on as you're thinking through how to establish these new paradigms.
Yeah, there's really not much for me to add, Mary. I just appreciate you asking a question. I certainly encourage others, if you have them now, just jot them in, or send a note or an email. You got it, Mary. Thanks for saying thank you. The only comment I would add on the power dynamic is, it's interesting. One of the polls that I asked about return to work was, who's actually making the decision on the return to work strategy? Is it the CEO by his or herself? Is it the head of HR by him or herself, his or herself? Have you surveyed employees? And the response was absolutely zero. Were the employees going to make the decision? Zero companies said employees were going to make the decision. And the majority was it was going to be effectively whatever the CEO wants. That's interesting. CEO is the leader, is the person that needs to best understand business strategy, needs to best understand the way to keep the business thriving and growing, in the position to hire more people. So it does make sense. But I think what we're seeing is that very, very often, what is in the immediate social headspace of a CEO is not at all what's in the immediate social headspace or even professional headspace of an employee. And so the power dynamic is probably changing. And then the only other thing I would add, and I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to even respond to this question, because there are certainly people way more educated by default of their experience to answer than myself. But just anecdotally, keeping an eye on the industry that I've been, an entrepreneur in for over a decade, is there is very much a shift in the role companies are playing with social justice. There's been, the past decade has been extremely turbulent in leading to what we all hope to be positive change. My only commentary there is, I'm still unclear, again, as a leader in this business, the role a company should be playing in a political and social justice landscape. Because on one side, you obviously want to stand for something, and you probably would like to stand for equality, equity, openness. But you also want to stand for freedom of speech and some of those core principles that have made this country or has put this country in a position to foster these organizations that we work for. And it's not black or white. And I think that's something that we're learning. And the great thing about the human brain and ingenuity is how quickly we learn and adapt. And I think we're seeing that firsthand with organizations from the collective role in social justice. Look, I did a one of my favorite presentations that I ever gave was the power of mechanisms versus individuals. And what that effectively means is, you can take out a bad CEO, but if the CEO is running an organization whose business model is reliant upon, let's say, data collection, then it's the mechanism that's actually what you need to focus on, not the individual. That would say, like, people might be upset with Zuckerberg for sharing data. Put anybody in Zuckerberg's position, they're selling data. That's how that business works. That's just how Facebook's going to survive and continue to grow. And we think about that when we think about that in our own lives. There's three core mechanisms that drive human behavior, and the survival is the self-preservation is the number one, and it works for humans and for people. What that means is, you're my best friend until just maybe we both have to clamor over one piece of bread, and then all of a sudden you're an enemy. It's like you go into survival mode. Companies go into survival mode, and they focus on what's going to help them survive and grow. And social justice initiatives are not that. I know we've made arguments for it, but we also know that data drives business. Short-term data typically drives business. And there's loads of data that suggests diverse organizations drive better business. It's really hard for organizations to get an immediate data-driven response on that. The reason companies change is because of the second mechanism that drives corporate behavior, and that's the social That's the social instinct to not be ostracized, to fit in. And so you see companies that have taken stance on certain movements, the Black Lives Matter movement, any movement that's driving equality, they'll take a stance on, they'll put a public message out. Some continue to carry that on, but it's likely not for the survival of the company. It's because they are being moved by this very powerful social mechanism, a workforce that is demanding the company respond to these things. Otherwise, they might quit, or otherwise you're going to have bad press. Therefore, the company responds. The third instinct is the sexual instinct, but that has nothing to do with any of this stuff for the most part. I suppose every once in a while it does. But those are the three main instincts that drive behavior. It starts with preservation. It then goes to social pressure. So if you ever want behavior to change, you need to link it to self-preservation first. For instance, if you want more of your employees to participate in hiring diverse workforce, make their bonus tied to their improvements with hiring a more diverse team. If their bonus is tied to it, I guarantee you will see improvement there because the bonus is tied to self-preservation. The second, of course, is ERGs and groups that create movements around that social movement. We got a little bit off topic here, but it's a wonderful question. That could probably drive us into a really wonderful webinar and employee engagement and those sorts of things. Awesome, thanks, Mary. Yes, I can share the talk. It's kind of it's a little bit of a presentation without context. I'm not certain it was recorded, but I can share that. Well, if there's no other questions, I don't know if there's a really good way to maybe tell people where they can learn anything more. Nick, of course, if you're not subscribed to the email I send every other week, it's just littered with articles and content that's there to help you make better decisions around return to office. I'll make sure you're subscribed after this if you aren't already, and just keep learning, but don't be afraid to, especially if you're the head of HR, don't be afraid to start making some iterative decisions on the return to office platform that will, benefit your employees. I really hope that more HR leaders stand up and start making decisions that inform the desires of employees. Because if you, just so you know, if every company, which we are learning, is waiting for other companies to do something, you can be that company that does something that others then follow. That's just that 100% is the way it's going to work. So if you say we're doing X and you put a press release about it, you let the world know you've taken a stance that is employee friendly, you'll not only drive more candidates to your funnel, but you will actually influence, to be quite honest, the world through this butterfly effect of making a decision that others are waiting for their colleagues to make. I'll sign off on that. If you want to learn more about anything Uncubed does from a recruiting side, just go to uncubed.com. If you want to learn more about how I spend my day, it's with Uncubed Studios, uncubedstudios.com. And if you want to put a team in the NYC Footy Soccer League, which I am really hoping that one of you goes back and goes to your Slack and says, does anybody want to join a soccer team on weeknights? And you let me know. I'd love to have you all playing in it. Nick, I'll let you know.
Soccer team.
Get them in. Get them in.
Yeah, echoing Tarek, if I can be helpful to anyone, I'm happy to just have a conversation. Typically, there's a task force or a subcommittee, HR plus facilities plus real estate plus C-suite plus tech. Happy to just be a resource thought partner to anyone. You can reach me at nick@kettlespace.com or check out our website, kettlespace.com. And yeah, happy to be helpful. This is uncharted territory. I find it fun, but I imagine for many of you, this is really stressful. And I think it's exciting. And like Tarek said, it's an opportunity for certain folks to lead the charge and be pioneers.
If any of you have ideas for webinars or products that you've seen that you think are awesome, you'd like us to get, I can promote it in the email and get people on there. Just hit reply to that Thursday email. I respond to every single person's email. So that would be great. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Joe from Kettle, thank you as well for helping organize it. I really hope we see those that are on here lead the way and where we ultimately end up on this thing, and may it not continue to linger for another 5 years. All right, thanks, everybody. I'll sign off.
Guys, bye.